Hi everyone, welcome back to Kelly's Data Insights. If you're new here, I'm Kelly and make tutorial videos on database systems and tech-related videos. Stick around until the end of each video where I share a bit of motivation to inspire you along your journey. In today's video, we're diving into an advanced feature called check codes. This tool is incredibly useful for when you're asking follow-up questions or filtering questions for specific groups. Check codes can help make your forms more efficient. Before we jump into this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click on the bell icon so you never miss a tutorial. So first of all, we need to go to Epi Info 2.6.0. And then once we're here in the interface, we need to go to create forms. All right, so now we're here on the create forms, and you can see here on your left hand side, there's a new project and open project. For you to be able to create your form, you go to new project, and then that's when you start off by creating a form. If you don't know how to create a form, please go to my previous video titled How to Create and Enter Data on a Form Using Epi Info 7.2. Alright, but for now, we already created a form, so we just need to go to Open Project. And then we look for our project name, and then that is health survey on malaria that we did last time. All right, so here is our survey. All right, before we go to check codes to create some codes for our follow-up questions, we just first need to create some questions which will be able to help us code. All right, so our first question is will be a yes or no question. So let's go to yes or no. You can drag it here. Our first question, which will be 7, is have you traveled to a malaria epidemic area in the last 6 months. All right, so our question is, have you traveled to a malaria epidemic area in the last 6 months? Then we click here. Let's make our prompt semi-bold and size 11. All right, so this is our question. We could just move it around a bit. Okay. And then our follow-up question is a text where we can ask the individual to specify the country. So we can 7.1. Please specify the country. We could say name as well. All right. Okay, so our question is, have you traveled to a malaria epidemic area in the last 6 months? So then the individual can answer either yes or no, and then please specify or name the country. All right, so say for instance, the individual selects no. Instead of them having to go through this question that says please specify the name or name the country, they could just rather not answer that question. So we have to go into check code for it to be able to be, you can choose, for instance, in this question, we're going to disable this question. So that means if the individual answers no, then this question 7.1 will be disabled. All right, so let's go into check code. So we just click on check code. All right, and then here we are. So you can see there it's listed choose field black for action. So this is, since we're on page 1, so we can select page 1, and then which field do we want to change or want to code. And we're supposed to select, have you ever traveled? And after, then select, and you can see there. And then from our commands, we go to if. So we scroll down and go to if. All right. So our variable, we just go to this drop down list and we look for, have you ever traveled to a malaria epidemic area in the last 6 months? So underneath you can see if the condition, have you traveled to a malaria epidemic area in the last 6 months, then we can select equals to no. So if the individual says, if you have traveled to a malaria epidemic, if you have not traveled to an, so when you select this no, then that means the individual selects no. Then what happens, we go to this option, then we do what? Then disable, then we disable the follow-up question, which was please specify or name the country, then we select OK. All right, so then we press OK. And that's our code. But let's just validate our code. Let's check the code. Okay, it's valid. And then we save. Okay, now it's saved. Let's see what happens if we go to enter data and we select no. Let's see what will happen. Okay, we can scroll down to our question and it says, have you traveled to a malaria epidemic area? The drop down list, and we say no, and we click. You see that I'm unable to enter any data because we have disabled this question if our answer in 7 is no. All right, so that's our first question that we coded. All right, so let's just go back to edit form. All right, we can save this. Okay, so let's try another question which has a follow-up question. So let's go to the next one, which is also a yes or no. All right, so this is 8. you had a fever in the past 2 weeks? All right, so that's the question. And we select here. Just change our prompt to semi-bold and size 11. Okay. Oopsie. All right. Have we ever have you had a fever in the past 2 weeks? And say our follow-up question is also a yes or no. Running out of space. 8.1. Okay, so our question is, did you experience chills along with the fever? So that if the individual had selected yes, so the follow-up question would be, did you experience chills along with the fever? Okay. 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 Okay, so now we also want to, if the individual selects no to this question, we also want them to skip this question and go to the next question. All right, so what we can do is go back to the check code and then we go to page and then we select after and then we select there. And then we go scroll down to if. Okay, so if have you had a fever in the past 2 weeks? So this is our if equals to no, then we could hide. We could either hide, we can hide, or we could, if there was another follow-up question, we could have selected go to, but for now we can just say hide. And okay, did you experience chills along with the fever? All right, so that's our code. Then we press OK. And then we have to validate our code just to make sure that our code is accurate. And then here underneath it says check code is valid. All right, so let's go back to entering data and see if once we select, oh, we forgot to save. If we select no, but for the question, have you had a fever in the past 2 weeks, then it's supposed to hide the follow-up questions, which is, did you experience chills along with the fever? All right, so we're here at Mia Thomas's section, and then here we are. So, question is, have you had a fever in the past 2 weeks? And if we select no and do this, it will be gone. So there will be no question. All right, so let's go back to edit form. All right, so you see this page is quite full, so we can go to malaria and right click, and then we press add page. Okay, we can just leave it as page 2. All right, so the next question is also a yes or no. And that will be our question 9. Have you been diagnosed with malaria in the past? In the past, okay. You press OK. Just align our question. Okay, so our follow-up question will be a number. So we drag the number field here and we write 9.1. And our question is, what year were you diagnosed? And there we tap, and remember, a year has 4 digits, so we select 4 digits, so the hashes are 4, and then we can go to prompt font and just change it to semi-bold again, 11. Okay. Okay. So now, say now we have another follow-up question, and this one can be, let's choose multi-line. So what treatment did you receive? So if the individual answered yes to the first question and also selected which year they were diagnosed, then they have to specify what treatment did they receive. But if the individual did not, or the participant did not indicate that they had malaria in the past, then they don't have to answer these questions. All right? So let us just create a code for that. so we go back to check code. And remember, this question was on page 2. So we have to go to page 2. And then this would come under after. But our question that we're going to select is, have you been diagnosed with malaria in the past? Then we click it and then we select after. Then we select on add block. And then we can scroll down and go to if. All right, so our initial question is, have you been diagnosed with malaria in the past? So this was 9. Have you been diagnosed with malaria in the past? So if this condition equals to no, then we could select go to, but then we don't have a follow-up question to include. So therefore, let's just quickly do the follow-up question and we can come back to this. All right, so then we have to go to legal values, or drag legal values here. And our question 10 is, what type of dwelling do you live in? All right, tap on field name, prompt font, change it to semi-bold, size 11, okay. And then for data source, we need to enter our options. We go to create new. All right, so this entity was already entered through my last trial. So here we have concrete house, apartment, or flat, traditional hut, apartment, flat, concrete house, traditional hut, shack. All right, so we just press OK. And we press OK again. All right, so here it appears. So this is our 10, question 10. And then our follow-up question for question 10 is, okay, our follow-up question is a yes or no. So we just select yes or no, drag it. So it's, does your dwelling have window screens? And then prompt font, semi-bold, 11, okay, and okay again. All right, so these are our follow-up question. This is my follow-up question for 10. All right, so since we want to code for question 9, we can just go to go to check code. Go to page 2. And then our question is, have you been diagnosed with malaria in the past? So just click there and click after, add block, and we scroll down to if. And then we state our variable, which is, have you been diagnosed with malaria in the past? If that equals to no, then our statement should be, then we want to hide what were you diagnosed, as well as we want to hide what treatment did you receive, because it won't be relevant for the individual that chooses no. So these questions can be hidden. And then we also want them to, we just want them to skip to the next question. So we select go to. And then the next question is question 10, which is titled, or is, what type of dwelling do you live in? And we press OK. And then we select OK. Okay, let's just make sure our code is valid. So everything is valid. And we save. All right, so then we can just go back to enter data just to see. Okay, so we go to page 2. And then we can see here, have you been diagnosed with malaria in the past? So once we select no, and then we tap, let's see what happens if we select this one. And then you see, because we selected in our code, we said hide. So therefore that those two follow-up questions are hidden. And then now we can continue to our next question. All right, so now what if the individual, now we're gonna code for the question 10. So we go back to edit form. We don't want to save. Right? All right, so if I want to code, as you can see, the answers or the options here, there's an apartment or flat, there's a concrete house, and then there's a shack, as well as a traditional hut. So if I want to code that these two entities, which are shack and traditional hut, don't have to answer this question, which is 10.1, saying, does your dwelling have window screens? Because majority of shacks and traditional huts don't contain window screens, but you could probably find windscreens in apartments or flats and concrete houses. All right, so this is just to include rural areas. So that's why we have shack and traditional hut there. All right, so let's just go back to enter data. Go to check code. Okay, then we expand and we go to our question and we select after, add block, and then we go to if, select if, and then our variable is what type of dwelling do you live in? So if what type of dwelling equals to quotation, you select the quotation here, quotation mark, and then you select concrete house, and then close your quote. And we select or, open your quote, and we select, type in apartment or flat. Just remember, it should be specifically the typing or the way you type in. It should be exactly the same as in your options for this question, which was what type of dwelling do you live in. So you can just go back and then probably copy and paste. All right, so what type of dwelling do you live in? If it equates to concrete house or apartment or flat, then we can, let's use disable this time. Then we disable, then we disable, oh sorry, we enable. Supposed to select, then we enable, then we enable, (10.1), or else we disable, does your dwelling have windscreens? All right, okay, so let's just see if our code is valid. Our code is good to go, so we save, and let's just go and confirm or see how our code. Okay, so we are here. We go to page 2. Okay, so if we were to select what type of dwelling do you live in, and I selected a concrete house, then we are able to answer this question. All right, but if I were to select shack and then continue, you see I'm unable to continue with this question because it's disabled. Alright, so as you can see on the screen, on the canvas, you can see that I added survey date as well as date of birth. So this will be able to help us to calculate the age of an individual using their date of birth, or yes, using their date of birth as well as the system date. The system date is basically the real date, meaning if today is the 30th of August, then the system date will actually show that it will be the 30th of August. And so as you can see, we have the survey date, which will code into being the system date, so it will just automatically show as the 30th of August, or whichever date you choose, or whichever date is the actual date. And then we have the date of birth, which the participant will choose and select the date of birth. So as we calculate those things, automatically at the age of participant, it will show the individual or the participant's actual age. All right. So let's just go to check code for us to be able to change the survey date into system date as well as code for age of participant. All right, so let's go to check code. So we're now going to page 1, and then we're going to look scrolling down for survey date. We expand and select before, and then add block. Then we're going to use the command assign. Then we're going to the drop down list and look for survey date, and then choose equals to. So survey date, and then we look for fx, then we go for, which is the same as function, and look for date. Under date we look for years, system functions, so we go to functions, and then we go to system functions, and then we select system date, and therefore survey date will equate to system date, which will be the same. All right, then we press OK. Alright, so now we're going to select our we're going to select the age of participant. We expand. Before that, let's quickly validate our code as well as save the code. And then we go to page 1 and look for age of participant, and then after add block, and then assign. So under assign variable we select age of participant. Alright, and then now we're going to go to equals, and then we go to functions, and then we go to date functions, and then years. Alright, so now we have to select start date. So we just highlight, and as well as there you can see that it's in date, and then we just highlight start date, and then we go to the available variables drop down list, and then we go to date of birth, and then also we're going to select end date, and we're going to go to survey date, because survey date is equal to system date, and then we press OK. So now we can validate and check code, and our code is valid, so we save. All right. Alright, so now we can go to enter data. And then we select survey date. And as you can see, it's the 30th of August 2024. Even if I were to select the 16th, you would see that it would still have the 30th of August 2024 because we selected survey date as our system date. Alright, so if we're gonna type in date of birth and look for example, Maya Thomas's age is 1999, March 11th. So her age or the date of birth is the 11th of the 3rd month, 1999. And then we click on age of participant and we see it's 25. So she's 25 years old. So even if I were to change, say 669, it would still change back to her original age as 25 years of age. So that's how you code for age. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. We are all placed on this world with a purpose. It is up to us to find that purpose and to live it out. The world is waiting for your light to shine and bring solutions to this world. So don't let your light dim out. Let it shine for the whole world to see.